Hey, good evening, everyone. State Representative Brad Halbrook here with the Tuesday night live stream and roundtable for the Illinois Freedom Caucus. We've got Chairman Chris Miller and Representative David Freese, along with our special guest, Peter Breen, going to join us here tonight. So with that, Chris, just an opening comment, and then we'll go to David, and then I'll do an intro here to Peter, and we'll get into the heart of our matter, talking about a very important bill, SB 1909, that became law in the summertime, and some recent legal action with positive good news for us. So yeah, Chris.
Well, it's great to be here this evening, and I just want to take a minute to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. And on the home of truth, logic, and common sense, we can still say Merry Christmas. But it's great to have Peter with us this evening. I look forward to having this important conversation.
Excellent, David.
Good evening. Pleasure to be here again. Looking forward to the Christmas break, taking a couple of days off with the wife and kids, relaxing a little bit. I hope everybody has a great Christmas.
Excellent. Thank you. And so as we bring Peter on, I just want to give you kind of a little bit of a background on him so you know who he is. He serves as Executive Vice President and Head of Litigation for the Thomas More Society. Over 2 decades in law practice. And Peter, you've been in the General Assembly. You had been in the General Assembly for 2 terms, became the floor leader, and you've argued cases in federal courtrooms and multiple other places. You've got a bachelor's in electrical engineering from Vanderbilt and a Juris Doctor from University of Notre Dame. Peter, welcome to the program.
Hey, it's great to be with you guys. Great to see you again.
Excellent. So, gentlemen and everybody out there, SB 1909, I'm going to read the synopsis right off the Illinois General Assembly's website. We saw this bill, I'm looking here, I guess it was May 10th is when we saw this bill on 3rd reading. It bans clinics that do pregnancy testing, pregnancy and contraceptive counseling, sonograms, and prenatal care, but that don't provide abortions, abortion referrals, or emergency contraception from using deceptive, fraud, false pretense, false promise, or misrepresentation to keep some from going into the clinics that offer abortions. I guess that's the synopsis. Peter, the floor is yours. Kind of bring us up to speed on the bill. It did pass out of the House on party lines, but the governor ultimately signed it late in July. Take it from there. What else do we need to know about what happened then and up to today?
Sure. And this bill was part of a nationwide effort by those on the pro-choice on abortion side to try to now go after the pregnancy resource centers that offer alternatives and assistance to pregnant women in need. These services are used by millions of pregnant women every year. And so they are valuable parts of the community. But there is this narrative that the other side is trying to develop that somehow they're lying to people. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing is, though, it doesn't make any sense when you actually poke at it and test it. This bill came through the Senate first and then over into the House. In the Senate committee, we had some fine senators who asked some very incisive questions. But during the testimony, the Deputy Attorney General had said, well, we've had numerous reports and complaints about these pregnancy centers. Well, right after that hearing ended, we got to work and put FOIA requests into the Attorney General's office and said, well, where are these reports and complaints? Give us back about 10 years. We figured that'd be enough. And we went back and forth 8 times with the AG's office. The FOIA process can be a little difficult. But at the end of it, after hundreds of pages of documents, not a single actual complaint about a pregnancy center to the Attorney General under the Consumer Fraud Act, which is where they were trying to put this. And so with that in hand, we came over to the House side. We brought that information. The pro-life movement brought it to good legislators like yourselves. And so that became the new story. So the House hearing was much more, Senate hearing was great. The House hearing, you're sitting there with the documents. Our legislators are looking at this going, where's the beef? And on the House side, the legislators involved all had healthcare backgrounds. You had an MD, you had a chiropractor, had a healthcare executive, and they're going, everything in medicine is written. And you're telling us you don't have a single sheet of paper showing an actual complaint by an Illinoisan, when you're looking at over 10 years, likely millions of Illinois women and at least hundreds of thousands have used the 100 pregnancy centers or so, the services of those 100 pregnancy centers or so. and not one complaint. So that's the thing that, the whole bill started with a false narrative. And so one of the points that had been made was, it's one thing to be, call it pro-choice. Now I'm very much pro-life, but I understand they're saying, well, we should allow abortion safe, legal, rare. That was the old bill formulation. But where you're actually trying to shut down these small nonprofits that are offering practical assistance and help, and you're doing it on a false basis, that really does start to look like you're pro-abortion, or at least you're pro-abortion clinics, pro-big abortion industry. And so that, that was part of what we were looking at. The debate in the House was great. The work on the floor, work in the committee was wonderful, where you had legislators and then the deputy AG saying, well, if someone says, well, is abortion, can a pregnancy center say that abortion is a sin? In other words, a quintessentially religious statement. They said, well, we would evaluate whether that's deceptive on a case-by-case basis. I'm sitting there going, what are you going to do? Call the Pope? What do you, how's that going to work? So do a survey of the pastors of the state and go, well, yay or nay. And another one, it was, asking about just the various points on these things. And here was another little trick. They were calling pro-life speech by the centers to be misinformation. Now, where have we heard that word for the last 3-4 years in the global pandemic that we all went through, where what started as misinformation, say about a Wuhan lab leak and all of these other things, all of a sudden now we know is probable fact. And so there's a principle under the First Amendment that the government has no business declaring what is true and false on an issue of significant public concern. And I'll say this, we're fair-minded here. So if someone had passed a bill and imposed these same limits, but only on the abortion industry and exempted pro-life centers, we'd have said, well, that's foul play. Can't do that. Can't do that. And so, we're fair-minded on it. And those were our arguments in court that, hey, you know what, you can't regulate this kind of speech at all. But it is both viewpoint-based and content-based in terms of discrimination of the First Amendment. And so that was part of the argumentation. Again, great debate in the House committee and on the floor, and the Freedom Caucus did a great job opposing it. And really, one of the things we can do in a state like ours is when we know, we're in the Christmas season, to take a biblical admonition, turn the other cheek. Turn the other cheek was not about, be weak. It was make it very clear what you're doing to us, and now you do that publicly. And so what the legislators who are, freedom-minded and First Amendment-minded and pro-life did was made it very, very clear. They're targeting people of faith who have a pro-life position. They're targeting a particular type of speech that the government has no business getting in the middle of. And so we then at the Thomas More Society, after the bill was signed on July 27th, we had a nice, big legislative record. And actually even in the House, 13,000, I believe, slips against the bill by people from all across Illinois, and maybe a couple thousand in favor. So the people of Illinois were against this. Well, within an hour of it being signed on at noon on the 27th, at 1 o'clock, we had the lawsuit filed and a request for a permanent injunction and preliminary injunction put into place. And then at 2 o'clock, Attorney General Raoul had a press conference in front of a Planned Parenthood banner. And remember, we've accused him. We alleged in our lawsuit, you're discriminating against pro-life in favor of pro-choice viewpoint. He goes and has a press conference in front of a Planned Parenthood banner. And, what was interesting is I use this as a teaching moment. Yeah, okay, we lost the vote, became a law. But what happened? We took control of the narrative. He got a softball question at the press conference as his first question. All the other questions afterward were related to our lawsuit. So the people wanted to know, well, how can you restrict their speech like this? General Raoul, how can you exempt the abortion facility? And so we really, on our side, we were able to put them on their heels, keep them on their heels. And now, that led to a good foundation for our court case. We had, we got some incredible brief drafters. I was privileged to be able to go to court and, kind of lead the effort in court there and, lead the briefing team. But we put, about a 55-page complaint, 31 pages of deep, thick constitutional law argument to the judge. A week later, he held a preliminary injunction hearing. We went about 6 hours, had live testimony. So all the pregnancy center directors came in. Folks who were sidewalk counselors were also being attacked under this bill. And so folks really, let the judge see, hey, here's what's the real harm of this.
Mhm.
And the best the other side could do is they said, well, there's no pre-enforcement standing to challenge this bill. And the idea there is you say, well, there's no threat against your free speech. And of course, the attorney general himself went to the floor of the House, sat there during the floor debate, did his press conference, said very specifically, I'm coming after the pregnancy centers. They're lying to you and all this, just utter falsehoods. And so the judge made an observation in his order. He said, only a fool would be, would not be chilled in his First Amendment speech, under these circumstances. And so at the end of that hearing, we were awarded a preliminary injunction. So which was a great, great victory because we were very, very much afraid. Folks in the pregnancy center movement were going to, are we going to have to shut down? Or, they were subject to $50,000 fines, dissolution, injunctions, all of that. And so that was a great victory there. I will say, though, the next morning, Governor Pritzker, who signed the bill and was all for it, goes on CNN, and they asked him some pretty pointed questions about our injunction and this bill. And he said, oh, it's constitutional. I'm sure we're going to win. And here we are, several months later. Fortunately, now the AG in the interim did say, I'm going to take 25 depositions. Now, you're only allowed 10 under the federal rules. So I'm going to take 25 depositions, 4 expert witnesses. We're going to spend a year and a half in discovery. Essentially, he's going to do everything he can to take these small nonprofits and just subject them to horrible treatment in court, spend, millions of dollars in attorney's fees. But instead, once I'm assuming good lawyers actually got a look at this. They looked at our papers, saw the lay of the land, saw the wonderful legislative record we had that showed the discrimination and the discriminatory intent of the legislature, the majority of the legislature, not you all. And so then we got an agreed permanent injunction against Kwame Raoul and every future attorney general of this state, saying that law is not going to go into effect against the plaintiffs, who are pretty much all the pregnancy centers in the state. So big, big victory. As well, there was an agreement, and it's provided in federal law. They agreed to pay our attorney's fees, and so that's very helpful. That was a little bit of a nice. It was a nice use. As a proud Illinoisan, I'm glad to see that use of my tax dollars going to the Thomas More Society as a donation for our attorney's fees expended. So that's where we were, and I think there were some great lessons learned. Which, we do work across the country. Obviously, Illinois is home for us. We do work across the country, though, and people are often, particularly in the blue states, folks can get disillusioned or they get dejected. Well, we just showed you how to take on a fight, huge public, spotlight on it, to take on the fight, be strategic, take the other side, and find their mistakes, hit them, highlight the errors of what they're doing and why it's illegal. And then close the deal, finish them off in court. And in an embarrassing way, frankly. So you had your House, and the House sponsor is a Representative Tara Costa Howard, who's an attorney, and said, oh, I'm so dismayed by this, or, I don't know exactly the word she used, but something like that. And you're going, well, you put out a plainly unconstitutional bill and you rammed it through. You didn't listen to your colleagues, in the Freedom Caucus and in the Republican Caucus and pro-life folks. And you just rammed it through thinking, might makes right. And that's not the way we should be doing business. So that's our story, start to finish. And again, I think for folks in your districts, they should be very proud of the way their representatives worked and proud of, the people came out, representatives stepped up and senators too, and then we were able to close it out on the legal end. We had a good record and we had a good, strong constitutional law foundation. So that was the story.
Excellent. Let me bring this slide up with some kind of our bullet points. And Peter, you talked about witness slips, and we hear this a lot from constituents. Is it worth doing? And I see here that the proponents on the bill, 3,945, the opponents, 18,116, opposed to this bill. So they clearly got their day in court, and their voices were ultimately heard. So don't give up. Don't lose hope on this witness slip deal. Hopefully, this is just yet another blow to these Democrat sponsors like Tara Costa Howard and proposing this bad legislation. So, yeah, gentlemen.
Well,
I know that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think it's a great day. It's a great victory for life. Peter, you mentioned, I'm old enough to remember when they were saying that the quote pro-choice individuals were saying, rare, legal, safe. That is morphed into now really seems to be by any means necessary to be actually pro-abortion as a pro-choice. So just a phenomenal victory. And one final note, I was in a committee where the AG appeared, and he was talking about how overworked his staff is, thanks to COVID and all the lawsuits that were filed during COVID. The masks, the school shutdowns, things of that nature. And then on the heels of saying, we're overworked, what does he do? He actually supports this legislation where they would be able to bring additional lawsuits under the Consumer Fraud and Deceptive Business Practice Act. So little inconsistency there.
Right. Chris?
Well, I know that was one of the things that I remember when we were having this conversation on the House floor. It was pointed out by several of our colleagues that this was an unconstitutional bill and should never see the light of day. And that's one thing that's frustrating to me about dealing with the Democrats is they really don't care about the Constitution and their oath of office, because clearly pointed out as unconstitutional. And thanks to Peter and his team, they were able to bring this to light so people could see actually what this was and what the Democrats are really all about, because this wasn't a pro-choice bill. It was actually a pro-abortion bill. And the Democrats have become the party of death. And I know that myself and some of my other colleagues have informed consent bills that are on the docket to be seen in this next legislative session. And if you think about it, if you're going to go in for any medical procedure, they tell you everything that could possibly good that could happen and everything that could be bad that could happen. But when it comes to abortion, they want these people to go in with not all the information to make the decision to kill their baby. And so I think that the pro-life movement would be well on its way to victory, is if we can just get legislation passed that these women that find themselves in this situation have informed consent. And I'm thinking that the statistics are very high, even if they just have a sonogram. So, this is a great victory for the life movement, for freedom of speech, and all of the above. And I salute you, Peter, and the Thomas More Society for taking this on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so it was quoted here. The House Democrat sponsor said her objective was to protect women, right? And she said our objective was to stop the lying, to stop the harassment of people outside any of these fake clinics, she said. Wow. Peter, here's a quote from you I'm going to bring up. And if you want to speak to this, and then any closing thoughts or anything additional that you want to add here about this monumental decision or agreement that was reached.
Sure. And I'll say this. This is something we do hope that the lesson is learned. I mean, not just here in Illinois. I mean, we do hope that, folks on the other side, and I know there are some people that on the Democratic side who do still care about good legislation, and they don't like getting a black eye in such a visible public way against a piece of legislation that they've passed and they touted and all of this. I mean, they put themselves out there for it. And they just, they got smacked down pretty good. So I would hope that they'll take a little more time to consider their legislation. But it does send a message to the rest of the country, because I'll tell you, Connecticut, Vermont, California, Colorado, other states either have enacted similar laws or they're getting there. And it's both a lesson to the blue state legislators, legislative majorities, the Democrats, to stop this. And it's a lesson to pro-life coalitions in those states that you can effectively oppose these measures that are coming through. Because I got to tell you guys, I mean, I have not seen the pro-life and conservative movements better organized and coordinated than I've seen us on this bill in a long time. I mean, I can't remember the last time we were this. I mean, it was just sharp. The legislators do a wonderful job, and I mean, I will say for the folks at home, I mean, you should be thanking God every night and praying for the strength, stamina, and health of your good legislators in Springfield, because it is a tough job right now. But we were able to get everybody just worked. The folks in the movement worked. The people just rose up and filed those witness slips and called their legislators. Legislators did a great job. The lawyers, we were there and ready to jump. Because I'll tell you, in some of these other states, we've been backpedaling. The legal cases don't get filed in time. Things don't move as quickly as they should. There's infighting. Some said, well, I want to get credit for this, or somebody wants to get credit for that. None of that happened here. I mean, everyone did their jobs wonderfully, and we all get to celebrate this great early Christmas present to us. So I think I mean, I've got to tell you, so, I mean, because I'm advising legislatures across the country, because I mean, look, it's one of those things now, having been freed of my service in the Illinois General Assembly, I get to go around the country and I speak to other legislators, and I could say, look, here's what we did there, and here's what you could do here. And, so I'm able to talk with both, blue, red, and purple legislatures, and they love to see lessons like this. They like to see that something effective can be done in a state like Illinois. And so that gives them hope throughout the country. So folks you guys should be very, very proud of yourselves, and the people should be proud of their efforts. And again, I mean, we got some tough sledding to come. I'll say that. I mean, our abortion rate is going through the roof in Illinois, in part because all of our neighboring states have, restricted abortion significantly. So folks are coming here. We've got to protect our pregnancy centers, because they are doing more work than ever. Our sidewalk counselors, who are offering practical assistance, they're doing it with love, and they're just trying to provide an alternative. When you see those statistics that say 60% of women who've had abortions, when polled afterwards, 60% say that they were coerced or forced into that decision. So if we can provide an alternative to those folks, a practical help, come around them and support them, at least for those folks that don't want to have an abortion, and there's a lot of them, we're going to give them that alternative and help them to get away from that, so that they don't make a decision that they may end up regretting. And we've seen the psychological, we all know folks who've had abortions, they very much regret them. We've seen those folks, we know those folks, they're in our families, our communities, and our churches. And so we just want to help those folks to not be stuck in that decision that they may not have wanted to make.
Right. Exactly. Good stuff. Let's have maybe some closing thoughts or comments here as we wind it down. Let's go to David and Chris. And then Peter, if you've got anything else you want to wrap up and say as we close out our evening together, I'm excited. I mean, this is the good stuff that from July 27th until about mid last week, December the 11th or 12th, got this agreement that this law is not going to be ever taken effect. And I think that's good stuff. So David, any thoughts? Oh, we lost you there a moment, Dave.
Forgot to unmute myself. Been doing this too long. Just thanks, Peter, for doing this and all the hard work that you and your people have done. Just a phenomenal, early Christmas present. Just very, very grateful.
Right. Yeah. Chris, chairman of the Freedom Caucus.
Well, I just want to thank you for taking on this challenge. I know a lot of times we think it's hopeless here in Illinois, and I think that when we have small victories like this, that it really motivates us to keep fighting the fight, and all is not lost, and justice in the end will prevail, and we do have a constitution, and so it's important to face these challenges head on, and I really appreciate your efforts in this whole pro-life movement.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Peter, any closing thoughts here? And how do people get a hold of your organization? What's kind of next steps? What's on the agenda or the front burner? Maybe people need to be thinking about as we head into the spring legislative session.
Well, ThomasMoreSociety.org, and Moore's with one O, ThomasMoreSociety.org. That's where you can keep up with everything we're doing. On the legislative side, so we have kind of a blue state strategy, red state strategy. In the the blue states, we're playing defense. Let's just be frank. We'll be honest. We want to press our advantages, talk about the things where, like informed consent, something that is so basic to all other forms of medical practice. Why isn't it happening in abortion? So that is a great thing to push in a blue state that can reach out to folks who maybe be moderately pro-choice, but they're going, I don't like my, a 13-year-old being taken for an abortion without notice. I don't like people being given this, being pushed into or forced into this decision. So, that's a great thing in the blue states. Red states, we're looking to advance the cause further. What you're seeing is you're actually seeing now state budgets being used to help support pregnancy centers and things. So, they were being used to support Planned Parenthood. Now they're being used to support pregnancy help centers. And so you're actually, hopefully, we'll get fewer of those women coming from those other states into Illinois to have abortions. We'll get them taken care of at home, so they don't come here at all. And so, they've got some of that coming down the pike. One of the other big challenges, Rob Bonta, Attorney General of California, so his Kwame Rolls counterpart over there, he's coming after Heartbeat International, which is another big group of pregnancy centers, and we're supporting them. Also under the California equivalent of the Consumer Fraud Act. So big case out there. That's going to be a tough one. That's going to take us a few years probably to litigate. And they sued us in Oakland, which is a pretty rough jurisdiction for a pro-life defendant. Let's just say tough jury pool out there and all that. So, but we're looking forward to, we're going to fight very, very hard. We've got great defenses and what have you. But just the fight is going on. And I would say this too. Things can flip fast on the state level. Every 2 years you got an election, things can move very, very quickly. And I watched, even in my legislative time, the public opinion, say in DuPage County, which is where I live, public opinion flipped on a dime. And it can flip back and forth. I watched it in the polling myself, can go to a place where much more friendly to conservative values or to life. And it can get a little more hostile too. But if we do our work and we're ready to take advantage of that, that flip, which we may well see coming, in upcoming, elections or what have you, not to get overly political, but things can change very quickly. So if you stay faithful, keep active and working and keep your faith, all of a sudden the tidal wave comes, you're ready to surf it and reap the benefits.
Exactly. Gentlemen, thanks for taking time this evening. Peter, thank you. I'm going to put up a slide here how people can reach out to us at Illinois Freedom Caucus, and we'll roll a little across the bottom here also momentarily. But as always, we appreciate you all joining us. And of course, we really appreciate it when you like, share, follow, and subscribe to our content. Help us overcome the algorithmic gods of the big tech overlords. How'd I do there, Chris? Did I get that all? So, gentlemen, with that, I think we're going to close out for the evening, and we'll wish you all a happy new year. I guess first a Merry Christmas and then a Happy New Year. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.